All right, good afternoon, folks. This is your host, Theophilus Joseph of Raven Temple of Seax, Wica, and also the founding druid of Order of Standing Oak here in Springfield. And today, I've been telling you guys that we are going to start on a journey into learning about herbalism. I've done everything else on the channel, but I haven't really put too much into that just yet. And today we're going to, take that bull by the horns and just go with giving you guys a chance to learn about that a little bit. And today I have a guest, and her name is Leah Richards. What's the name of your company, Leah?
Mabel's Herbal Apothecary.
Awesome. And right over there on that table, I can zoom in a little bit, is all of the stuff from her apothecary. And just so you guys know, we are going to be putting up stuff for her store on the videos that I make from now on, so that way you can have a chance to possibly get some of the things that she makes all by her own self. These aren't made in a factory somewhere, over in China or whatever. These were made by her with her loving hands, and it is an endeavor for her that just kind of keeps her going. So don't be afraid to, look at, we're going to have all of her links and stuff like that. And the first part, we're going to kind of talk about what was it that brought you kind of into the idea of working with herbs and stuff. And anyway, even before you started making your products, what was the thing that really kind of got you going into doing herbs and herbalism?
Well, I was actually unexpectedly diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, and which was very unexpected because I was at the healthiest I'd ever been in my life. I was at the best weight I had been in my life. I was active, I was eating healthy, all of the things you're supposed to do, but I still got diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Found out it was genetic, so I was going to get it no matter how healthy I was, but it kind of made me start looking into herbalism because the medications that they put me on were horrible. They made me so sick all the time. I hated how I felt. I couldn't go anywhere or do anything without worrying about what the after effects because of my medication. It just was horrible. So I was like, there's got to be a better way. I started looking into it, and I started remembering things that my grandmother had taught me when I was young. Just things about our flowers and our herbs and things that we would find when we would be at her farm and we'd be walking around the farm. And I would ask my grandma, what's this? And she'd be like, oh, that's a dandelion, or oh, that's plantain, or oh, that's, a white willow, and you can do this with the bark of it, or you can take that flower and do this with it, and it's very good for your body, and that's how they used to make medicine. And I started remembering all of that and saying, what if I went back to that? Because the pharmaceuticals aren't cutting it, It's miserable.
Yeah.
So I started looking into it. Now, eventually I did end up having to give in, and we messed with my medication. So I still am on one medication, but
Okay.
I'm able to kind of mitigate all the other things through herbalism. And so that was my beginning of it, was just kind of having this thing happen in my life and it bringing memories back of my childhood with my grandmother and the things that I learned from her as a child. And I was just like, it's got to be, of course, back then, they referred to it as old wives' tales. Well, there's substance to old wives' tales, come to find out. So I started digging into those, and that's where it all started. And although I started on it for my own health, it just kind of snowballed from there. You go down one rabbit hole, and then you're like, oh my God, I'm finding out all this stuff, and science actually backs it up.
Oh, yeah.
You know, what else is there? So then you go to the next herb, and then the next herb, and then you start looking in your yard, and you start going, what's that? And you start taking pictures and, you know, finding out what it is, and then you find out what that's good for. And really and honestly, there's very few things that grow in our grass, in our yard, in our homes, that aren't useful somehow.
Just out of curiosity, other than, you know, knowing that you needed to get things taken care of because of your diabetes and stuff, was there ever, you know, an influence that like got you, that just kind of piqued your interest outside of that? Was there a book or just something that said, oh, I can start looking into this for your, you know, for your health and stuff like that? Or did you just kind of know what was going on from how your grandmother helped you and stuff, and you just went right into it? I mean, was there a catalyst beyond that to kind of help you start to work with herbs and things?
I think as I was growing up, you know, my mom was also a very big believer in holistic wellness my whole life. She survived cancer 3 times. Because she was so aware of her own body, they caught it early. So she never had to go through chemotherapy, thankfully. That was not something that ever... She knew her body, and she knew when something wasn't right. And a lot of that was because she shied away from pharmaceuticals. So I had that example my whole life of, you know, my mom looking for plant medicine and finding it. She never, when she went through menopause, she never did HRTs. Her favorite product that she had was a wild yam cream that she would put on her lymph nodes every morning. And she got through menopause fairly, I don't want to say unscathed. I don't think any woman going through menopause comes out unscathed, but it was not near as bad as it would have been, I think. So,
okay.
You know, I got to see these examples throughout my whole life, and I think maybe I just kind of took them for granted because I always took vitamins, and I always knew, you know, certain things were good for certain things, and, you know, plant medicine and things like that. I just did it without thinking, if that makes any sense.
Right on.
It wasn't a focused, though, until I had this, how I felt at the time, this catastrophic diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. And I remember going into Mama Jean's, and right after my diagnosis, and looking around and was like, everything's got trans carbs in it. I'm going to die because I'm going to starve to death. And I broke down in the middle. I was crying in the middle of Mama Jean's, and this beautiful old lady, I have no idea who she was, and I have not seen her since, came up to me and she's like, honey, it's going to be okay. And she hugged me and she said, you're not going to starve to death. You're going to be okay. And that kind of snapped me out of it. And it was almost like she reminded me of my grandma a little bit.
Uh-huh.
And maybe that's where it like snapped of the, hey, you know, your grandma might have had something there. Maybe you should go back and look at some of the stuff she taught you and study into it further and see, you know.
Right on.
If she was right on or if she was full of poopy.
All right, let's bring things up a little bit because I'm keeping an eye on the time here. Next, for our people that are pagan and have been on the channel and stuff before, we are just past Lugnasad, matter of fact yesterday, and we are getting ready to move into Samhain coming up here in just a couple months. Haven't forgotten Mabon, but that's a whole different thing. But coming up into Samhain, what are 3 herbs if somebody wants to bring herbal stuff into their life? What 3 herbs do you recommend that people get into their house if they want to start out with learning about, you know, herbs in a way that is kind of seasonally appropriate, if that makes sense?
Yeah. Apples.
Okay.
I know everybody kind of knows that, but it's not for the reason that you think. So go out there and study it, learn about it. It'll be surprising. But apples, my brain's not working and functioning either. The yew tree.
Okay, yeah.
So if you can get a little bit of yew bark, that's something that's extremely fascinating to learn about. Very toxic. So
Yes, you got to be very careful.
But that's one of the reasons why. That's another reason why I suggest it for sound, because not everything in herbalism is made. Not all herbs and plants are made for consumption.
Yeah, that's true.
That doesn't mean that they aren't significant spiritually.
Just a little side note, you're talking about the apple and the yew. As a druid, we use apple and yew. In my back bedroom, I have an apple branch that is made into a ritual. It's a bell branch. It's what we use to bring the gods and the spirits into our circles whenever we do ritual and stuff like that. So whenever you said apple, I'm like, hey, Leah knows her stuff. And what's one more that you would recommend that people check out for Samhain?
I had five. But
I know one that I'm thinking of, but I'll tell you after you.
yeah, see, I told you if I don't write it down,
That's okay.
you can ask me. I can give you a very common one, but you guys are probably going to be disappointed when I say it, and that's rosemary.
Oh,
And the reason why I say most, because everybody's like, oh, everybody knows about rosemary. You don't.
yeah.
I guarantee you.
You think you know everything, but there's stuff to rosemary that will
There's
blow your mind,
Yes,
probably.
there are absolutely aspects and associations of rosemary that most people, if you look into the cultural, traditional, our ancestors, the way it was used, not how it's used now, how it was used in the back in the old days. You'll still, I mean, every spiritual association with different herbs can graduate and it can evolve over time and things like that, yes. But I think one of the things that hurts us as a spiritual community, as a pagan community, is that we listen too much to people that we don't personally know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
People we don't know how their relationship is with that plant. And that is a big thing with our...
And we're going off of their experience. We need to experience it for ourselves.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So
that's the big thing with amabels, is that I want you to have a relationship with the plant, not just learn about the plant. You need to find out how it affects you, how it affects your practice. That includes rosemary, which everybody is so common, and everybody's like, oh, you can use it for anything. And you can use it, it's the intention that counts. Intention is a lot. But you can't use a screwdriver to hammer in a nail.
that's true.
You know what I'm saying? So it's really advantageous. Plus, it's fascinating to learn about this stuff.
Right on.
Especially if you go back to the cultural and the traditional and the respectful uses that these different plants have.
Mm-hmm.
Find out how your ancestors used it.
Yeah, that's true.
Where you come from, because, for example, rosemary was not known in the Celtic world. It didn't grow there. If you'd asked our ancestors in Scotland or England or Ireland or any of those, but they wouldn't have known what rosemary was, because it's a Mediterranean plant.
Yes, it is. The one herb that I was going to say for sound that I like, which I do have some in the back, vervain. I love vervain.
That's the one that most people don't associate with salmon. You know what I mean? And
But then again, it's just like you got to know what you know, and so.
That's why when I try to educate people, although like this time I used rosemary, and it's a very commonly used herb in paganism, I don't want it to be that because it's a common, because there's a very specific reason to use rosemary in Samhain.
Yeah.
Even though it's not commonly associated with Samhain. So learn about these plants.
Mhm.
Go out there and find out what your culture used during these times of years, because everything, you know this, the Wheel of the Year,
Yeah.
all of those festivals, all of these celebrations are on a cycle of how the earth works, how Mother Earth grows and dies and comes back and renews and protects and clarifies and transitions. It's all a big circle.
Uh-huh.
And they described things back in those days, how they saw things. Because they didn't have it they didn't have the vocabulary, they didn't have the science, they didn't have the things that we have now
Yeah.
to explain things. So they used other words and things like that. So.
Okay. We're getting close to the end of this. We've got about 6 minutes. No problem. But what I want to do for this last few minutes is I want to give you the floor and let you talk a little bit about your business, Mabel's
Sure. Apothecary.
Apothecary. How did that come to be? What was the thing that led you to start it up?
Well, originally, actually, my paganism started it. So I actually started in pagan herbalism before I did the wellness. And I had met some people in the community and started thinking, and I knew I had this knowledge about herbalism. And I started it caused me to go into a deep dive of learning about these herbs and finding things out that was not common knowledge and not, trendy, for lack of a better way of saying it. And so I was learning about this stuff, and I started implementing it into my own life, and implementing it into helping my children, who were grown at the time when I started doing this.
We got 2 minutes.
Okay, and so I just started learning more about what my beliefs and how I felt and the things.
Right on, yeah.
And it grew from there. And I was like, well, if I have the ability to be able to make these things, and maybe some people don't. And I thought, well, why can't I just make stuff that will appeal to vast number of different practices and belief systems and things like that, and find the cultural common ground where we can all come together and use these same things. So that's kind of where it started.
A question before we end the video here in just a couple minutes. For all the time that you've been doing this and stuff, I know that, everybody has their own ways and reasons for doing it. But for you, for as long as you have been doing it, do you like it? Does it still fulfill you for, being able to do the things that you're doing? Not just the business side, but learning for yourself. Does it really bring something to you that sticks with you? You know what I mean?
It originally was just something that was kind of to pass the time, because I was taking care of my mother who had Alzheimer's, and it would kind of pass the time because I couldn't really do a whole lot outside the house. But now it's a passion. I probably stay up too late at night when I have to. I'm on a computer. I have my own office now because I kept everybody else awake, so we took an extra bedroom and made it my office so that I could segregate myself from everybody else and not keep them awake at night.
I'm glad that you got that. We're almost to the end of my time, but just out of curiosity, in the future, would you be interested in coming back and doing an update video for us?
Sure.
Okay, so my thing's about to run out here in just a minute, but what I'm going to say is I really appreciate Leah coming and taking this time out today. She's a great person. She's brought me some wine bottles, and she brought me some candle holders and stuff, and she's just been real nice all these years. And we're going to be doing that first issue of Witchcraft coming up here at Samhain, so look for her stuff, and we're going to work some things out so that we can get the apothecary on my YouTube for all the videos and such. So keep an eye out for that. We're going to have her website links and everything so that you can order some of her products and stuff. And it's just it's a journey for her, and it's going to be a journey for you. And I just want to say thank you for coming out and hanging out with me today, Leah.
You're very welcome.
And having said that, I am Theofrith Jessup of Raven Temple of Seax Wica, saying blessings of Woden Freya to all, and give her stuff a look. We're gonna, go for it as much as we can, and appreciate anything that you send her way. And until next time, blessed be.